Alright, let's jump right into it. We're holding Parak Beis of Maimer Chaf Aleph. We were talking about the concept that you have Atzilus is distinct, it's separate from Asiya. We said that even though it's Be'en Arich, we said there's no comparison between them, but there's still a Yachas, there's still a connection between them. That is, that Atzilus has 10 spheres, and the 10 spheres, even though it gets completely removed from the way that it is in Atzilus when it comes down into Asiya, nevertheless there is that kind of connection. Chachma of Atzilus still has some kind of resemblance to Asiya. And we gave an example of a mashal, where you have a random story that happened, and you could pull out a lesson. The lesson has no connection to the physical story that goes on. Nevertheless, the lesson is still something which is contained within the story, but there's a connection, but it's still completely removed. The notion of an idea is removed from the notion of the physical, not from the notion, but from the physical story. We said this is not how it is with Atzilus to Ein Sof. There's no connection, there's no spheres there, etc., etc. So just, we said in the world of Atzilus, there's 10 spheres, Eiros and Kelim. Chachma Vasiya, Lagabi Chachma of Atzilus, is, like we said, physical sweetness relative to the notion of kindness. And the sweetness comes from the kindness, and the hishalshalos of Bria and Yetzira and Asiya from Atzilus is through a Parsa. And we said it's like an intellectual concept which is revealed from a parable. And we said that Atzilus is removed from Biyah, but there is still a Yachas, there's still that kind of connection. Parak Beis. This is what the Alter Rebbe said, that more than there's no comparison between Asiya and Atzilus, there's no comparison between Atzilus and Ein Sof. The Ein Sof, Atzvus Muhos, that in Ein Sof, the essence and what it is, Lo Yesh Klal Inyan Asfiris, Asr Sfiris Atzilus in Kumahos Chadash Mamash. There's no Inyan of Sfiris, and the 10 spheres of Atzilus are literally like something that is completely new. And therefore, Salvos Asr Sfiris Atzilus Ein Sof, the creation of the 10 spheres of Atzilus from Ein Sof, Hu al Yidei Tzimtzum Umakim Pani. It's through, you need to make a Tzimtzum, you need to make a Makim Pani, you need to make an empty space. Shehu Inyan his almost Harishan the Gami, that the original air needs to be completely hidden. But Oz Nasa Davar She'eni Mimahos Harishan Klal. And then you're able to create something which is not from the essence of what the original light was. This is a concept which is discussed in Chassidus. This isn't the place to be delving too much into this. It's not what our focus is. It would be amazing to jump into this, but for that I'm going to start giving a share in Ayin Beis. Aval Asiya Lagabi Atzilus. Asiya relative to Atzilus. Yeshla Erech V'Yachas. And there's some kind of comparison, even though we say there's no comparison, there's some kind of comparison, some kind of connection. There's still Chachma in Atzilus. There is Chachma to be found. And if that is the case, the Chachma of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, Hu Mahus Chadash Mamash. It's impossible to say that the Chachma of Biyah is a completely new entity. Sharei, there's still Chachma that already exists in Atzilus. Over Hechech, Shagam Bekinas Chachma of Biyah, Klula B'Chachma the Atzilus Me'achar Shagam Kein Bekinas Chachma. It must be that the Chachma of Biyah is included in the Chachma of Atzilus, after the fact that the Chachma of Atzilus is still Chachma. But rather, that it's only a higher level of Chachma. We know that everything that there is on a higher level contains within it all the elements that you need for what comes on a lower level. As we explained before, the concept of the malach hitting the plant, and the plant doesn't have, or the apple doesn't have sweetness in its source, but all the elements are there from beforehand. And the creation of Chachma from the Chachma of Atzilus, it is in a way of hishalshalos, of cause and effect. That the Chachma of Atzilus has, it causes that once you have the tzimtzum, if you will, of there being creation, once you have the fact that now we're removing it a level and it goes into creation, it causes the next level of a Chachma. Ela shechachma de biyah nikris shel tolev or chadash. But the Chachma of biyah is called a light which was birthed, or a new light. The reason for this is the fishu b'eifin achmer b'chinas chachma d'atzilos. It comes in a completely different way from chachma d'atzilos. And it's created in biyah through the parsa, as we said in the last days. The Indian parsa hu kumei a mashal canal. That the concept of a parsa is like a mashal. Shamashal hu be'emes davar achya legamri mei nimshal. A mashal is really something which is completely separate from the nimshal. Hu Indian parsa. This is also the concept of the parsa. Shu davar achya legamri, which is something which is completely removed. She'ene b'kinas atzilos. It's not the level of Atzilus. And through this, the level of Chachma is in Biyah. I don't remember if the Rebbe Rashab pointed it out in this Eis or not, but there's a very classic line that says that Shlomo HaMelech had 3,000 Mishalim. What does it mean Shlomo HaMelech had 3,000 Mishalim? It's not like a list of Mishalim from Shlomo HaMelech. We have maybe count 3 Mishalim from Shlomo HaMelech, actually, I think. It's in the Gemara somewhere. But the 3,000 Mishalim, it's explained that they correspond to the 3 worlds of Biyah, and each one, as it has 10 spheres that are included of 10 spheres that are included of 10 spheres. So Shlomo HaMelech understood in every single thing, every single source that it has in every single level of Biyah. He knew in like Chachma, the Bina, the Gvura of Bria, he knew like what every single thing corresponded to on that level. So we
actually physically only had 3, but then there was the additional ones.
No, I'm saying we only have like 3. I'm saying there's 3 parables, I believe, that are miyachas to him.
Okay.
That he has that we like Mishalim that came from Shlomo HaMelech. No, actually, those 3 were from Rabbi Meir, I believe. Whatever. We have different Mishalim from Shlomo HaMelech and Mishlei and whatnot. But the notion of 3,000 Mishalim that Shlomo HaMelech had, this is what it refers to. Mm-hmm. They also say about the Rebbe's brother that he was able to take anything and he was able to tell you a sherish and elikos. But that's I don't know.
Brother?
Rabbi Yisrael Arileb. So anyhow, Harei zeu shemeschadish v'chinas hachachma al yedei davar zor legamri. This is to say what we said, that there's like that the chachma of bria comes in the way that you have like a mashal to seichel. So that is to say that it's like a new chachma that came through something which is completely foreign. Because of this, it's called ischachos. It's a novelty. The same way that you have a mashal and you have a nimshal, you have the mashal and you have the seichel that's enclosed in the mashal. You have the parable is a completely new idea. It's a new concept. It does contain within it the idea, the nimshal. It contains within it the seichel that you're trying to give over, but ultimately it's a mashal. So mishum zeh nikras ischachos. This is why it's called a novelty. Al mikol malkim be'etzem. But the idea, the kernel of intellect that you're trying to give over, in a davar chadash, it's not something new. To say that it's something that's completely different. Therefore, creation is through the parsa. The notion of existence is through the parsa. It's not similar to the concept of tzimtzum, which we said before, just the Sheikh HaChayzin, we said before that Atzilus is separate from Ur Seif. Ur Seif, you need to have a tzimtzum. Ur Seif, there's no concept of spheres. In order to have a concept of spheres, you need to start working out the core elements, and that means you need to start taking away Ur Seif, because Ur Seif has too much. You need to start focusing on there's too much to be said about Ur Seif and how you're able to pull spheres out of Ur Seif, which you can't really, because there's not really spheres there, but you're still able to, and it's very nuanced. But over there we said you need to have a tzimtzum, you need to have a removal of light. Over here it's not a removal. You don't need to take away atzilus in order to make biyah. The inyan at tzimtzum hu asiluk v'helim erution. Tzimtzum is that you're taking away, you're hiding the original light. Aval parsa, but in the parsa, harei erution shubakin is chachma atzilus. The first light, which is chachma atzilus, mislavish misalim about parsa. It's enclosed and it's hidden within the parsa. Lahavis v'chinas chachma b'riya, in order to make the level of chachma and bria. Like in a mashal, where it's very funny that we have a parable about a parable. But like in a parable, the moral is enclosed literally in the parable. And with this, you're able to give over a new seichel, you're able to give over a new intellectual concept to the person that's hearing the parable. This is also how it is at the level of chachma atzilos. It's literally enclosed in the parsa. And with this, you're able to have chachma in bria. And it turns out yesh l'chachma d'bria is erech l'chachma d'atzilos. That there is a scale of comparison between the chachma of bria and the chachma of atzilos. And this is also the case with chachma of asiya. The chachma, as it comes down into this world, has some kind of erech to a chachma of atzilus, which is really chachma as Hashem could appreciate it. And it has a scale of comparison because even though, yes, it's removed, even though it goes through different levels, and now it's a creation, now it has a form, and now it's actually something physical, now it's something tangible, now it's something in the world, there's still that level of scale and comparison, because ultimately the chachma of Hashem, the chachma of Atzilus, is enclosed level after level until it comes down to here. So even though when we understand something, when we think about something, yes, it's something different. When we think about an idea, any idea that we have is really rooted in tangible reality. It's very, I'm sure there's a lot of things, there are a lot of things discussed in philosophy. I don't pretend to be a baki in them, but there's a concept that it's very difficult to imagine the concept of something that doesn't have space. Like imagine a pushka that's on the table. How could you imagine the pushka that doesn't have space, it doesn't occupy space? You can't imagine the pushka in a place that doesn't have space. You'd be imagining space. You'd be imagining that there's nothing else there besides for the pushka, but still it has space, it still has dimensions. We also can't really imagine something that doesn't have time, but that's a little bit more. No, space, you can't imagine something without space. And in the same way, you can't imagine something that doesn't have a form, because in order for us to appreciate something in our tangible realities, it needs to have a form. Even, you could say a concept which is really stripped and really removed the concept, let's say 2 plus 2, a very spiritual concept, because it doesn't really have anything, but ultimately you need to have the notion, when you say 2 plus 2, you're accepting the notion that there's an existence. And besides the fact that there's an existence, it could be numbered, there's more than one existence. Then you have the concept of the additive function, that you can start putting things together to start making groups, and all of these things, we just take it as it's such a given, that we think, 2 plus 2, it's very simple, it's very removed from physicality. It may be removed from the notion of physicality, like a physical table, but it's still very, you need to have existences, you need to have notions and everything, and by the way, we don't know how to prove 2 plus 2 equals 4 mathematically. There's Hilbert tried to prove it, and we partially don't know. It's something that we take it as a given. I don't think that it's false. I think it's been proven empirically, but ultimately it still has some kind of root in physicality, the way that we would relate to it, even though I can say and I can appreciate 2 plus 2 equals 4 is a spiritual concept that doesn't require any physical entities, it doesn't require space, and it doesn't require time, it just exists. But the only way for me to relate to it is, I would say, well, by way of example, you have 2 tables, and that would equal 4. I can't appreciate an idea I can say I have the idea, and I'm going to try to imagine it doesn't have the physicality, but I can't relate to it properly without physicality. And when Hashem has an idea, it doesn't have the concept of it hasn't been created, it hasn't been formed, it doesn't have any real world analog. But that same idea is able to come down after it's been enclosed in Bria, after it's been enclosed in Yitzira, after it's been enclosed in Asiya. It's able to come down. So even though when I think, a concept in Torah, when I think about Getlachkeit, it's my understanding, and it necessarily has real world analogs, and it necessarily has all of these things which are removed from godliness. Everything that I need to think about requires space and time and all of these things. And by Hashem, it doesn't require that. And when you have the essence of an idea in Torah, it doesn't require that. But ultimately, it's been a shtalshal, it's been a slavish until it could come down. It's the same idea that you have from Atzilus. It comes down into Asiya, it comes down into Chachma of Asiya. And this is also how it is with everything. Right now we're talking about a person being judged on Rosh Hashanah. That's ultimately what we're talking about. So it comes out in the same way, but that we're gonna explain further. Not necessarily at the end of this, but we're gonna explain further about Hashem. So, and as it is in Chachma Vasiya, as relative to the upper Chachma Vatsilos, this is also how it is with kindness in Asiya. That it is also in the level of a shalshalos from the chesed of Atzilos. Because of this, because chesed of Asiya is rooted literally in chesed of Atzilos, like by way of example, to give 1,000 separations, the sweetness of the apple, the sweetness of the apple, which is rooted in the spiritual mazel, like we said, the malach that hits every plant and tells it to grow. By the way, Stam, to note, I wonder if the notion that he says to make 1,000 separations, if that's a meduyik number, because we say that there's 1,000 different levels in each world of Bria and Yetzirah and Asiyah, and the malach is in Yetzirah. I wonder if he's saying that it's to make 1,000 separations to bring it to. I wonder if the number 1,000 is meduyik. But anyhow, and in the source of the source, it's all from spiritual kindness. So from Chesed of Asiyah, all concepts in this world, all of the vitality of this world is all drawn down. So if this is the case from the Chesed of Atzilus, which is set for a person on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and on Yom Kippur, it's fitting to say that all of the physical hashpayis, all of the physical sustenance that we're going to get is drawn down from Chesed of Atzilus into Chesed of Asiyah. The Chesed of Asiyah mushush v'Chesed of Atzilus. After the fact that Chesed of Asiyah is rooted in the Chesed of Atzilus, imkain, if this is the case, Harei gam kol hadvarim neshachim b'chinas Chesed Asiyah v'shoshim gam kein b'chinas Chesed Atzilus. All of the things which are caused in Chesed of Asiyah is also rooted in Chesed of Atzilus. That in Chesed of Atzilus, it's already rooted everything that's going to come down into this physical world. Even though we say that by Hashem there's no yachas, there's no erech, there's no comparison, that Chesed and Atzilus has no form, it hasn't been created, it doesn't have any form, it doesn't exist. Taka, it's true, it doesn't. But even though it's as Hashem relates to it, as it's devoid of everything physical that we would attach to it, nevertheless, that's still where it comes from, that's still the root, that's still the source. And when it comes down, when it's been established once it's created, once it's formed, once it exists, we're able to appreciate it, but it's all from there. This is what it means when it says, according to the opinion of the Chachamim, as we explained before, that a person is judged on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for everything that's going to happen in the year. Because the kindness which is set for him on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when it's drawn into Malchus of Atzilus, it includes all of the things which will end up coming from it. Because ultimately in Atzilus, even though it's removed from the world, it contains within it everything that's going to end up coming down. Any questions?
Well, coming down within that year, right? Because it happens again.
Coming down within that year, yes.
Okay.
So Atzilus ein areichel Atzmus. Atzilus, there's no comparison to Atzmus. This is the Kitzur. The ein sham inyan aspiris kamei b'Atzilus, because the concept of aspiris doesn't exist in by Ur and Seif as it does by Atzilus. V'savus aspiris Atzilus hu al yidei simsum siluk, and the creation, the existence of the 10 spirits of Atzilus comes through Hashem being mitzamtzim and removing the Ur and Seif kaviyachol. V'salvos aspiris the bria Yetzirah Asiyah me'Atzilus hu al yidei Parsa, and the making of the 10 spirits of Biyah from Atzilus doesn't happen through tzimtzum, it happens through a Parsa. V'chesed Asiyah yeshnam ha'makirim inyanim gashmim. You have the source of all of the physical things in Chesed of Asiyah. So in Cain, if this is the case, yesh lahem yachas l'chesed v'chachma d'Atzilus. So it has some kind of yachas, it has some kind of relationship to Chesed and Chachma of Atzilus.
Sure.
Very nice.